This is Design Safe Radio, where natural hazards researchers strive to make our society more resilient to everything nature throws at us.
Wow. And we've talked about kind of the more traditional building codes in previous episodes and kind of just how long of a process that is. Is that going to be a similar expectation with HUD? It sounds like it might even be a multi-career length expectation for that change cycle. What are your hopes and expectations in terms of actually seeing this impact produce change?
Right. I mean, I don't know that we have all the research done yet that would be needed to have really great design provisions written specific to manufactured homes. There's a lot done for site-built housings, and some of that maps over well, but there's a lot of distinct differences between the two. Mm-hmm. And so if you wanted to try to mimic the current version, like if you wanted to continue with those differences of not having a permanent foundation, of being built on if you wanted the manufactured home to largely still be like that, then you can't. A lot of the research, a lot of what's known about site-built housing doesn't map over. Some of it does, some of it doesn't. And so I think more research is needed. So that's one reason why it might take, like you said, a career or something to make change happen. But then, right, even just the code cycles and all the people who get, to vote on processes like that and the pushback. And it's, who knows the types of the reasons motivating pushback, especially in a case like this where I'm not sure how many times it's been brought forth on updates, but there's always could be perverse incentives. But one thing that comes up often is just the affordability. So mm-hmm. if we improve the quality or the structural performance of these homes, then they won't be as affordable as they were before. And maybe that's true, but maybe that's really not true, because it
sounds like just a very convenient excuse.
Yeah, it's kind of a supply and demand thing, and economies of scale, right? If we, and so it'll get more affordable as we do it, just in and of itself. But also, there's all types of policy levers, right? There's all types of incentive programs that can be used, tax breaks. There's all types of things that could be used here to make it affordable still, even if the initial cost was a little more. So I don't really see that as a barrier. It's just, but those are the things I think that happen, and it can take a long time. The cycles are usually, I don't know what the HUD cycle is, but it's anywhere 3 to 6 years and some of the other standards. So
I wonder if in your research, if you found this to be true. We actually had an economist on a couple of years ago about basically for every dollar you spend on mitigation up front, you save 6 on the back end with hazard mitigation strategies, at least in traditionally built structures. Do you find that to be the same in your manufactured housing, or is there more research to be done there?
Was that Keith Porter that you were talking to?
I think so.
So he, the Mitigation Saves Project, did that calculation, right? And they did an update a couple of years ago. So we got Mitigation Saves 2.0, and there's even some instances, some hazards, some types of mitigation that can even get that ratio a lot higher too.
Cool.
So, but in general, mitigation saves, and that's the name of that project. And I think I haven't done that study for manufactured homes yet, so I couldn't, say with 100% confidence, but I can't imagine how it wouldn't be true. Right?
So if you got any economists listening that need a new research project, there you go.
I mean, if you just look at the damage that's caused to these homes, and then what that means to the household's life, they've lost everything. A lot of these homes, they explode, right? It's not just like, a little damage here that I can repair. A lot of the homes completely explode. So you lose everything. And then the resources available to these people to recover, and just the emotional toll, all of that stuff, what price are you putting on that in your benefit cost ratio?
Right.
So, I mean, so even, and then whatever they paid for their home, for them to get a new one now too, it's like, yeah, absolutely. There's no
And
way that the BCA doesn't work out well.
does traditional home insurance cover them? Like, like if I lost my house, State Farm would replace it eventually. But does that same thing kind of work in manufactured homes or for people living there, or is there no support like that?
Yeah, no, insurance. Yeah, they can get the same types of insurance with, similar coverages, but the way that insurance works is they when you file a claim and you get that claim payout, right? It's for the present value, or maybe you might have paid for a higher level of insurance or something, but it's the present value, right? And manufactured homes don't hold their value quite as well, and the ability to then, and so a lot of the homes that are really really damaged, catastrophically damaged, are older homes, pre-1994 construction even. And so
Mm,
the value of that home and the ability to replace it, right, that whatever you're getting back from your insurance is not going to replace it, I guess
right.
is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, they definitely can still get the same types of insurance, but their homes don't necessarily hold the same value as.
Yeah. So it's not a replacement value. It's a kind of like car insurance, right? Like, when you total your car, they'll give you back whatever equivalent value of your car if you had sold it then. But you wouldn't be able to get like a new car that was the same as what you bought originally.
Yeah.
Wow. And from little I know of folks who live in your manufactured homes as well, is like most of them are not that well off, and having to pony up another few $1,000s on top of what little they get back is just not something that's available to them on a short notice or even on a long-term basis.
And I think that this is actually the bigger point when it comes to insurance and manufactured home residents, is that, largely these are, lower income households and people who are residing in manufactured homes. And so they're really underinsured.
Yeah.
They're not going to opt into insurance if they're not required to. And so homeowners insurance is most common for people who have mortgages. And so
Yeah.
most people who are living in manufactured homes, don't necessarily have mortgages. And so then they're not going to opt in to this homeowners insurance that they're not legally required to have. And if they're, in a position, if they're not legally required to have it because of their location in a floodplain or something, they're not going to opt in to this additional payment, right? And so you see that manufactured home residents are underinsured overall. And so then again, there's different levels of coverage. And so then they're, I'm not sure, obviously I don't have this data to say proportions, but I would presume that, they're not at that highest level of insurance,
Yeah.
even when they do opt in, right?
Wow. That just highlights kind of actually a very good segue to my next question of relying on publicly available data,
Mm-hmm.
um, like insurance claims, like data on how people are paying for these homes and their present value of them, and manufacture dates, and all sorts of stuff that you've got to bring from all these different sources. So can you kind of talk about the process and the value of using existing data that's available in the public space for the kind of research that you do?
Yeah, I bring in lots of data. I even have a paper that we should be, I think we're almost ready. We should be submitting it, I think, in the next week or two. And it really is even a step-by-step guide of bringing data sources together to study community resilience. And so, we bring lots of public data together in the research that I do. And this study too did the same thing, maybe some different data sources, but lots of different data together. So we collected our own primary data in the field after Hurricane Michael on damage to manufactured homes. We found, we used other published data on damage to manufactured homes after Hurricane Irma. And so that's why I've got the Hurricane Michael and the Hurricane Irma trajectory
Yeah.
behind me for that study. But then we were also able to bring in, parcel tax data. We were able to bring in Google Street View imagery to get the pre-storm, like the pre-damage photos of these homes, so we could really discern what was damage caused by these disasters. And I think in our study, we had 279 manufactured homes that we looked at. And so we didn't find the pre-disaster imagery for all 279, and we couldn't get the tax data for all 279, but we got it for most, definitely the majority. And so that really deepens what we're able to examine, because when you're in the field, right after Hurricane Michael and you're classifying damage, you don't want to go through digging through someone's property to see if you can figure out when this structure was built. The people may or may not be there for you to ask them if they knew anyways, right? So there's all this information that you can't necessarily tell in the field. And so being able to access these and you definitely don't want to ask someone, well, how much of this damage existed before Hurricane Michael?
Right.
Like, what a horrible question that would be to ask someone whose home is destroyed. Yeah. And so it's like all of this other data really can help you, investigate and try to understand the situation, and really, like, I think, decipher down to what the damage mechanisms really were and any patterns that exist across, those construction standards. We were able to pull in wind speed estimates from ARA as well, right? So then what damage patterns do we see controlling for year built, controlling for roof shape or elevation, controlling for foundation type, just based off of, wind speed now. And so anyway, so it really just lets you get a much more detailed investigation pulling in the data sources.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of Design Safe Radio. This show is sponsored by the National Science Foundation grant number 1612144. You can subscribe to Design Safe Radio on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you find your podcasts. Please leave us a review so we can improve the show. Please also help others find our episodes in iTunes. Thanks for your feedback and support. You can find out more about NARI at designsafe-ci.org, on Facebook at Design Safe Radio, or on Twitter at NARI Design Safe.